We have 2 minutes. One minute. I show 9:30.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Board of the Western Municipal Water District. Tammy, would you please conduct a roll call?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Director Torres.
I'm here.
Director Denstedt.
Present.
Director Roten.
Here.
Director Rizvi.
Good morning, I'm here.
President Gardner.
I am here as well.
Thank you, President Gardner. You do have a quorum today.
Great, thank you very much. Brings us to the Pledge of Allegiance. This morning will be led by Sean Diaz, an operations technician in the Electrical and Automation Services Department. Sean, if you'd tell us just a little bit about you and then lead away.
Good morning. I've been here for about a year and a half. I'm with the Automation and Electrical Services Department, so it's a pleasure to be here with you guys this morning. I've been kind of looking forward to it.
Well, good. Yeah.
Thank you, thank
So-
you.
Okay, if everyone please
Ready?
rise.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay, brings us to public comment. Tammy, did we receive any? Do we have anyone in the room or anyone online?
Yes, thank you. We received no written comments. There's nobody on Zoom, but I do have 2 requests to speak in the room. At this time, I'd like to call Colleen Strong.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I came down today because I was under the impression there was going to be a SAPA presentation. And so when you hear the term weather modification, I think majority of the public, they think conspiracy theory, that there's no such thing as that. And up until a couple months ago, I kind of leaned the same way until I learned about the Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority. And I did some research into them. Apparently, they notified the public about what they were going to do. I try to keep pretty close to what's going on, and I didn't know about it. And I still think a majority of people still think it's a conspiracy theory that they don't put silver iodide in the air and cause these storms. And I wanted to bring up a couple of things. One was March 7th, I was actually caught in one of the storms that they created. It's on their website that they seeded that day. And I was on the 215 going south about 6 p.m. when a hailstorm hit. And I believe several accidents were caused by that because it was pretty horrendous. There was another thing that right after I learned about it was when I also learned that Tennessee suspended all of their, they passed a bill to suspend all of their cloud seeding within the state. I just found out 2 days ago that the cloud brightening project in Alameda has been suspended as well. Now, I know that we are not going to be seeding over the summer. I would really love for us to look into this and maybe notify the public, get more public comments about it before November, before they are allowed to start seeding again. It's just a great concern, and I would assume anybody that has children that has playing in recess, they don't want their kids playing in silver iodide, and we don't know what those reflections are doing to us, just all kinds of bad stuff. So maybe we could make an effort to reach out to the public. I would really, really appreciate that, you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mike, can I make a brief comment? Okay, I'll do it in my director remarks.
Thank you. Now I'd like to call Roy Bleckert.
Morning, Mr. Blickert.
I'm going to give you a brief history of Edgemont in 3 minutes or less. It's my native area. Been around this game for parts of 7 decades. I'm going to call out, and I believe it's in Miss Torres's district. Give you a little history. They hijacked the redevelopment funds with that moon rock of a mall in there that we could have used to fix Edgemont. In the 90s, after that, a guy named Chet Gilbert was the EMWD director out here for this area. We had a deal worked out where they were going to annex your part in, and we were going to fix the water deal. Well, that didn't come to fruition either. Today, 30 years later, those people are still drinking crap water out of that all of these agencies, City of Moreno Valley, EMWD, Western, could have fixed. Went through this with your former engineer, Mr. Jeffrey Sims, who was also a planning commissioner at Moreno Valley. We see a lot of political stuff, and a lot of the same ones you and you and you support are up there. You're in there in the City of Moreno Valley using Edgemont as a tool to hose our community under that, and you're using the poorest and most disadvantaged people of that. It's shameful of what's going on. There's no cooperation. We could fix it, and it's not giving them a little clean water or that working around the edges. That's a failure of our governments that come across each and every day of what we're dealing with at everything, and it starts here. We could. For 100 years, we have known how to deliver the most affordable water in the state of California. We've given you billions of dollars in bonds and projects and things that aren't getting done, and you're systematically making it more expensive for water for people, and you're driving businesses out. You're making people, it hurts the poorest in our community. A lot of you chime about that. It takes more of their income, more of a percentage of their income. They have to make more choices because it's every time you raise all these prices in this water and everything else that's going on, they're the ones that suffer the most. And you and you and you all sit there and pontificate. You're not up there lobbying Gulag Gavin Newsom saying, hey, buddy, why don't you go talk to Corey Jackson and say, stop calling us racist and start working with us to deliver cheap, clean, affordable water to everybody so we can all live a halfway, partially decent life.
Thank you, Mr. Bleckert.
Okay, no one else, Tammy?
We have no other requests to speak.
Okay, that will conclude public comment. Brings us to the consent calendar. We have 5 items. Anybody? Oops.
We have some
Presentations,
if you'd
excuse
like.
me. Yes, let's do that, especially since we
Would
have
you
a
like
guest.
to do that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me kick it off. So we've got two different topics this morning. The first one, Michelle Adams is going to come up and introduce our Western Water Scholarship award recipients. Michelle?
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Craig, members of the board, and members of the public. For those of you that don't know me, Michelle Adams, I'm your Customer Experience Manager here at Western Water, and I lead the team that's committed to enhancing experience across every interaction with Western Water. And today, I get to share a little bit about how we do that through our education program. So it's my pleasure today to highlight the recipients of Western Water's Endowed Scholarship. Western Water's Endowed Scholarship Program is it's a funding partnership with 3 of our local public post-secondary schools, which includes 2 universities and a community college. Next slide, please. Western Water's comprehensive education program focuses on K-12 education, career education and pathways in partnership with our HR department, and our community education program. We recognize the importance of investing in students as future water leaders, community leaders, and industry contributors. So to support this, we currently fund scholarships at Cal State San Bernardino, the University of California, Riverside, and the Riverside Community College District in both Riverside and Norco. To qualify for these scholarships, students must have a 3.0 grade point average, and they have to express an interest or declare a major in water management, water policy, conservation, environmental studies, public administration, or our newly added public policy. With us today are some of the recipients of our 2023-2024 endowed scholarships. Next slide, please. So our first scholarship is going to the California State University San Bernardino student, Jose Jimenez. Unfortunately, Jose is not able to be here with us today, but he is pursuing his degree in geology, and he is focusing on water resources. Fortunately, we do have Cal State's Director of Philanthropy, Lisa Flom, with us today, and she's going to be accepting Jose's certificate. Lisa, if you would like to join me at the podium, we will do a quick photo op. Board members, if you'd like to come down from the dais and do a quick photo op with Lisa, that would be great. I was going to do one at a time. Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Or do we want to do it at the end?
You're in charge.
I would like to do it one at a time so the
Okay.
students can have individual photos for their certificates. The next award recipient is from the University of California, Riverside, and her name is Naya Pizarro. She is advancing her degree in public policy. And with us today, we have the UCR's Director of Development, Elliot Emmer, to receive the certificate on her behalf. Go ahead and join us at the podium, Elliot. highlighting Riverside Community College District, both our Riverside City College and also our Norco campus. So here with us today, we have Crystal Palmgren, her parents, and Marie Thermidor with Riverside Community College District. If you guys would like to join us at the podium. And Crystal is pursuing her degree in math and science.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you. Come on over. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. And then the next student that we have with Riverside Community College District who's not able to be with us today is Nadim Kadaj Malat. And Nadim is, sorry, my notes are messed up. Nadim is currently pursuing his degree in computer science. And so we're going to present that to Marie. If you want to go ahead and pop on over there so we can send a picture. Okay. Thank you, board members. I appreciate you entertaining the photo op. And with that, I'd like to say a huge congratulations to this year's scholarships recipients. Western Water is very fortunate to have the opportunity to support these aspiring youth, and it gives us an opportunity to give back to the community and further enhance the experience with our water resources, water supply, and delivery here in Southern California. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. If not, if we could just give a big round of applause for our scholarship recipients. Thank you
I have
very
a quick
much.
comment. First of all, thank you. I love this season, scholarship season. For those of you that don't know, I received the scholarship through Cal State San Bernardino when I was at Cal State San Bernardino. So it's awesome to see it going. I hope we start keeping track of what's going on with our recipients and where they end up. But thank you so much to our educators and then our scholars that received it, and of course Western for continuing this scholarship going.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right. Presentation 2.
Yes.
Bill Hazenkamp is here with us today. Bill, thank you very much for coming. So Bill is the true expert on Met's Colorado River activities and has been briefing all of the Met managers and the Met board for a really long time. And boy, is he have his hands full on what's going on these days in the Colorado River. So Bill, thank you for coming down and giving us some time. I really appreciate it. It's all yours.
Thank you, Craig. If you read the news about the Colorado River, you read about a river in distress, a river in crisis, a river that is, how can it possibly continue to provide water to 40 million Americans? How can it continue to feed the West? But if you look at Southern California, the river is and has been our backbone supply for decades. When our member agencies need water and local projects don't produce as much as planned, member agencies turn to Met. And when Met needs water, more often than not, it turns to the Colorado River. Yes, we have a state water project that provides half of our water on average, but in dry years, the state water project, as it's currently formed, doesn't produce much water. But the Colorado River has always been there, a full supply of water when we need it. In fact, Met is considering building infrastructure to move more Colorado River water farther east than we've ever delivered in the past. Doesn't sound like a river that is in crisis for us here in Southern California. Next slide, or does this actually move things? Okay. Right. Colorado Basin, I'm very fortunate in that the Colorado Basin has always been my playground, whether it's skiing in Vail or mountain biking in Utah or kayaking at Lake Havasu. For the last 20 years, my playground has been my work office. The Colorado provides water to 7 states and 2 countries, 30 Native American tribes, 40 million people, grows much of the winter vegetables through the harshest and driest climates in the world. The basin has always been governed by collaboration. It's always been coming together, 7 states, to determine the future of the river, not the federal government, not the courts. And usually it's California that's instigating most of the changes on the river. It was in the 1920s that California wanted to tap into the Colorado River. Imperial Irrigation District wanted to take water from the river. Metropolitan Water District was formed to tap water from the river. The other states were nervous that if California had the first water from the river, they would have that water a high right in perpetuity. So a little over 100 years ago, I'll get this right. Okay, a little over 100 years ago, the 7 states got together and charted their own future and said, we are going to divvy up the river to protect our future development, our future rights. We'll give half the water to the upper basin, even though in 1922 there was very few people in the upper basin. They knew that someday they would want that water. Half to the lower basin, with an extra 1 million acre foot in the lower basin for mostly the state of Arizona, because they were already using water in the Phoenix area. And then later, in a treaty, 1.5 million for Mexico. And with that in place, Hoover Dam was built and the Colorado went forward. But there's a couple things in the compact that are subtle that playing out today that are not really that obvious on the slide. The first is that the upper basin, not only do they have a right to use 7.5, but they have a requirement to deliver 7.5 to the lower basin. So if the total runoff is 15 million acre feet, that's fine. They can use 7.5 and deliver 7.5. But if the water supplies are drier than 15, which is what we've been seeing lately, the upper basin bears the risk of a drier future or climate change because they still have to deliver their water to the lower basin and there's less water for them to use. And that resonates today in the discussions that they think that deal that was supposed to be equitable isn't fair. The other piece of the compact that was questionable was, what does that 1 million acre feet for the lower basin mean? Well, it meant for the tributaries in the state of Arizona, but Arizona took the position that all of our tributaries are ours, belong to us, and that shouldn't count towards our allocation. The issue went to the Supreme Court, which was the one time that the court did control the river when California was in a lawsuit with Arizona. Arizona won, and they got rights to all of their tributaries, which is about 2 million acre feet. So they got an extra 1 million acre feet of water above what was contemplated in the compact, which increased use in the lower basin, created this deficit, this imbalance, which again today is involved in the discussions going forward. And we are in the process now of developing new guidelines for the Colorado River. In 2 years, we'll have all new rules that govern how reservoir operations will be shared, how shortages will be determined, other types of rules. And in a way, it feels like a game sometimes where people are focusing on certain statistics. How can we get a little extra here, a little there? It was 2 years ago today that the Pittsburgh Pirates were playing the Cincinnati Reds in Ohio. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, 2 pitchers combined for a no-hitter. Yet they lost the game. They didn't get credit for a no-hitter. So while it sounded great that they had a no-hitter, in the bottom of the 8th inning, they walked the bases full, and then they had a ground out that scored a run, and they lost the game. So sometimes people focus on the the numbers and the little pieces of a puzzle without really saying, what is our end goal? And our end goal for us in Southern California really is dry year reliability for the Colorado River. And that's what we have to focus on, not so much other stats that maybe are not as important. And it was 20 years ago last year that California had to reduce its use. One of the deals with Arizona that was cut was Arizona won in the Supreme Court, so they got the right to build the Central Arizona Project, which increased their use. But until they build that project, California got to use the extra water. That extra water was available until 2002. Then the time came for California to reduce its use. We stepped up by providing $2 billion to reduce agricultural demand, with San Diego County Water Authority, Metropolitan Water District, and the state of California making investments when the QSA was signed in 2003 to conserve water in Imperial Irrigation District so they can grow the same crops using less water, to pay farmers in Palo Verde Irrigation District to not grow crops on a rotating basis, and to line the large canals that provided water to the Imperial Valley, the All-American Canal. That reduced our use by 800,000 acre-feet, along with demand reduction here in Southern California. 20 years ago, Metropolitan was importing 2.5 million acre-feet of water from Northern California and the Colorado River. Last year, we were half that amount. So a combination of tightening our belts here in Southern California and investing in our agricultural partners made a huge difference on the river. It's something that we need to remind other states that we can permanently reduce your use and thrive. We're still feeding the nation and we're still thriving here in Southern California with a lot less water. It was in 2007 that the states came together with the first time since the compact to change the rules of the river, because it was realized by 2007 that the river wasn't producing what it used to. And the Secretary of the Interior, Dirk Kempthorne, signed the record of decision at the Colorado River Water Users Conference, the Aqua Conference of the Colorado River that meets in Las Vegas every year. And those rules, those guidelines did a number of things, had shortage criteria and changed the way reservoirs were operated. Most importantly for us, it created what's called the ICS program, which is an Arizona term, but it means that Metropolitan can store water in Lake Mead. The rules before 2007 were use it or lose it. So we had to take that water off and store it in a groundwater basin or do something with it or we'd lose it. Now we can leave it in Lake Mead, take water from the state project, and then later use it to fill the aqueduct. Those guidelines are in effect through 2 years from now, 2026. And so this is what's terminating, along with a number of other agreements in the next couple of years that we are working on today. What those guidelines did well was provide certainty for water users. We kind of knew now how much water we had under what conditions. And that storage program was so important to us in Southern California so that we could store water and meet in a wet year on the state project, and then in the drought years have a full aqueduct to our region, making the Colorado so reliable to Southern California. But there were things that the guidelines didn't do as well. It did allow some users to manipulate the system. When I say some users, it's really the state of Arizona. They found out a way to manage water to keep Lake Mead just above a shortage, but low enough so they got extra releases from the upper basin. They found a way to game the system, and it really made the upper basin mad. Also, the shortages didn't reduce the risks of the system, and those risks became painfully obvious in 2020, when we had both the hottest and driest year ever on the Colorado Basin. Same time as we're learning how to wear masks and social distance, the Colorado was learning what to do with hottest and driest together, which is a really bad combination. Lake Powell and Lake Mead hit their lowest level ever. Now the news is on the front page of the LA Times, the New York Times. When will we hit dead pool? When will we run out of water? There was a lot of concern. Some of the scientists said this is the new normal. Hot and drier is going to be the future, so get used to it. The states tried to come together with a plan, on a short-term plan, to try to stop this in case we continue to have hot, dry weather. In fact, 2021 was hot and dry. 2022 was hot and dry, so we had 3 years in a row. Yet the states didn't come together. It was the first time in our history on the Colorado where the states were finger pointing instead of working together. So California, again, stepped up and took a leadership position. The Colorado River Board, that represents the agencies in California, which is Metropolitan and the big ag agencies, Imperial Irrigation District, Palo Verde Irrigation District, Coachella Valley Water District, sent a letter to the Secretary of the Interior saying, we're going to step up and we'll save 400,000 acre feet a year each year through 2026, through the remainder of these guidelines. The
Mr.
letter
Mason,
said
can I ask
everyone.
you to pause for just one moment? I'm sorry, we have a technical difficulty. Thank you. Stand by.
Should I do this?
No.
Stand back?
Stand forward. Like where you normally would, where you were. Slightly more, a little bit more.
So this moves easily, but that not quite as easily,
That
I
is
guess.
correct.
It's-
So you're good now.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I
thank you.
appreciate it.
That's all right. I won't get on my toes, though. So in October, the California stepped up and said, we're stepping up. We think everyone needs to step up, but we will step up first. We will agree to do 400,000 acre feet of conservation, even though we are that we're not subject to shortages. This is addition to what is needed. And that Metropolitan also was willing to not take our stored water and mead. We had over 1 million acre feet of water and mead, and we knew that taking it out would lower the reservoir. We said we will not take that water out and possibly allocate water to our member agencies to protect the river. So it was a big effort for California to step up and saying, we'll lead the way. And the response that we got was, you know, one of my favorite things in the morning is to, with my cup of coffee, I look at my news feeds, and it's usually a relaxing time. I get caught up on things. This was not a relaxing time because story after story was saying what we're doing isn't enough. Even though we're the only one that stepped up with a real plan, knowing it was part of a bigger plan, story after story said, far from what's needed, we're not doing enough. It was a very difficult time. The 6 states were really coming after California. And that continued into last year, 2023. But then two big changes happened. The first is that Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act in late 2022, which provided $4 billion in drought relief, with the majority of that money focused on the Colorado River Basin. And that meant that there's a lot of money to help everybody reduce their use. And secondly, while all of the scientists said that 2022 to 2023 was going to be another really hot, dry year, they called it triple La Nina. All the science says it's going to be a dry, dry year. It was actually the snowiest year ever in the history of Utah, snowiest year up at Mammoth. Hopefully you got to ski that year. It was an amazing year, which changed the trajectory and also showed how little we know about long-range weather forecasting. So as a result of that really wet year, it didn't fill the reservoirs, but it certainly brought us some relief and federal funding. The lower basin states at least came together. Upper basin was still a little skittish, but the lower basin said, we have a plan for the next 4 years that can protect the system and get us on a path to focus on the long-term agreement. So in the short run, we're good. In fact, the record of decision for these agreements just came out last week, I think, or the week before, with not a lot of fanfare, but Commissioner of Reclamation confirmed that the Lower Basin Plan is the plan, is the rule for the next few years, and we are well on our way to saving 3 million acre-feet of water over the next few years. Which then now means we can focus on the next generational set of agreements. All of the agreements expire 2 years from this summer, so we need new agreements in place. The 7 states came together last October in Park City, Utah, to say, 3-day workshop. Let's work together to come up with a 7-state plan. We didn't do it in the short term, but in the long term, this is important enough. They all came out of that meeting saying, yes, 7 states, we're in it together. And then instantly started having press release and press conferences in the upper basin, pointing fingers at the lower basin and saying, this is a lower basin problem, you fix it. And as we went into the CRUA conference in December of last year, it was clear we weren't going to have a 7-state deal. So the lower basin got together and submitted their own alternative for the EIS in March of this year. And a couple things to keep in mind when we're planning for the future. The narrative that you'll hear a lot of places is that the Colorado River is dry and only getting drier. Things are getting worse every year. The reality, though, that's not quite the case. It is true that this century, we're already 25% of the way through this century. Hard to believe. It was just Y2K, right? Now we're 25% of the way through the century. It is 15% drier than last century. So we're about 85%, but it's been relatively stable. In fact, the trend line is slightly up over the last 24 years. Probably not significant, but it's been relatively stable for the last quarter century. Yes, drier, but stable. So the narrative that the Colorado's fallen off a cliff doesn't really hold up. There are dry years and wet years, but relatively stable so far. Doesn't mean the next 25 years won't be terrible, but at least as of now, things seem somewhat stable. But what's not stable is demands in the basin. The lower basin has stepped up over and over again to reduce our demands over this quarter century. In 2002, we were using a record high 8.7 million acre feet of water. That's our full 7.5 of apportionment plus surplus water. But last year, we were down to 5.7. So 3 million acre feet less water. And it's been a declining trend. Much of this is California, but it's not just California. Arizona and Nevada also have stepped up and reduced their use. And really, this lower level that we're at is sustainable. We're at a level now that if we just stay where we're at now, we should be good. And if you look at the actual reservoir storage over this quarter century, it dropped pretty quickly the first 5 years from 2000 to 2005 when our demands were still pretty high. But if you look at 2005 to 2020, we were stable at about half full. Then we had that recent drought in 2020 where we dropped. And even though we were at record low levels, we were still far from empty. We still had almost 20 million acre feet of storage available to us. And then we recovered somewhat. So what we're trying to do in our lower basin plan is keep us about this half full level. We're not trying to refill the system. We'll never refill the system. The only reason the system was full in the first place is because the demands were low last century. With our current level of development, the best we could hope for is about half full going forward, which is still much more water than we would have in California. And the lower basin plan that was submitted addresses the supply and demand imbalance that's currently in the basin, which is what we're calling the two-tier reduction. One is addressing the structural deficit. That's the current deficit in the basin, which we've essentially done voluntarily the last few years, but we're going to codify that and say, if we can stay at the level we're at today going forward, we're good in the event that the future is like the recent past. But we also know it's possible that climate change could dry the river out more. and could make things worse. There are some scientific studies that say things will get a lot worse. We don't know when. Will 2027 all of a sudden things get a lot worse overnight? Probably not, but at least we have a plan for that. And if climate change does dry out the system, our plan is to share that 50-50 upper basin, lower basin. The other thing is that we are having our reductions based on the total system storage. Right now, everything's tied to Meade, so everyone looks at the level of Meade based on a water supply. That's not a great way of providing reductions. We think that the whole system is a better metric. All 7 reservoirs combined would be the determination for future reductions. Upper Basin doesn't like that. They see those Upper Basin reservoirs, Flaming Gorge and Blue Mesa and Navajo, as their reservoirs, and they don't want this part of the solution. But they're not their reservoirs, they're federal reservoirs that are all holding Colorado River water. And our reductions here are this, it's called a Z-curve, but essentially what we're saying is we're prepared to take significant reductions if we needed to. What we're saying is if the reservoirs are more than about 70% full, then we get our full deliveries. If we're between about 38% full and 70% full, then we'll take those reductions in the lower basin only up to 1.5 million acre feet. That would cover all of the last 25 years, 1.5 million acre foot reductions. But as I said, if things get worse, we may have to go up to as much as 3.9 million acre feet. Very, very low probability event, but at least the plan is there in case we need to. And we would share that with the upper basin if in that low probability event. This graph shows where the reservoirs have been over the last 25 years. The key is the gray line, which is if we had been implementing our plan in 2007, the storage would have followed that gray line, which is the upper line, and we never would have gotten into that cuts above 1.5 million. We would be bouncing between 1.5 million a year and something less. So within that 1.5 million acre feet a year, the states in the lower basin got together and decided how they would share it. California has the higher right over Arizona, and the strict law of the river would say Arizona has to take the first 1.5 million acre feet of shortages before California takes a reduction. But we compromised in this process and said we are willing to continue. We put 400,000 on the table. We're willing to increase that to 440 on a permanent basis going forward, which is a 10% reduction. But that goes along with Arizona stepping up and taking about a 27% reduction, and then Nevada and Mexico 17% each, which is their pro rata share for this 1.5 million. Now, we don't have a plan in California yet of how we would share that 440. That's something that is in the next steps. But why would California, who has the higher right, offer to give up 10% when we don't have to? 3 main reasons. One is litigation risks, decreased litigation risks. The one time that we went to the Supreme Court in Arizona versus California, we thought we had a good case. I wasn't around in the 1960s, but whoever was thought they had a good case. We lost and had to deal with the consequences. We don't know how the court, no matter how good our case is, we don't know how a court would rule. So we're putting water on the table as part of a compromise rather than risking going to court. Secondly, decreased legislative risks. The Congress gave California its high priority right. California could take it away. Even though we have most of the delegations in Congress, getting California together sometimes is a hard task. And when the other 6 states come together against California, there's always that risk. And finally, most importantly, is we benefit from the flexibility that when we can store water in the reservoir in a dry year, in a wet year, and take it out in a dry year, is so important to us. We're willing to give up water on average in order to get that dry year reliability. And if you look at our recent history from 2017 to 2023, we're already down at 4.1. So we're already down 300,000 acre feet, and that's going through the worst drought in California history. Even with the worst drought in California history from 2020 to 2022, we've been able to wean ourselves off the Colorado River. So we think that we can go that extra distance. We've also got a huge amount of water stored in Lake Mead to help us. 1.6 million acre feet of water. That's 25 feet of water in Lake Mead is just Metropolitan's name on it. So we can use that to offset any future reduction or fill the Colorado River Aqueduct. So we think we're in pretty good shape. Well, we know we're in good shape for those not really dry scenarios, those really off the chart ones. So where are we going from here? So the process is, right now the federal government is working on the draft EIS. The lower basin submitted our alternative. The upper basin also submitted an alternative, which not surprisingly says the lower basin takes all the cuts. A collaborative of NGOs submitted an alternative. Some Native American tribes submitted an alternative. So all of those alternatives right now are being evaluated by Reclamation, plus a couple of their own that they're throwing in. That draft EIS is scheduled to come out in December. Well, they will evaluate all the alternatives. It probably will not have a preferred alternative. Then they will go into preparing the final EIS. And the hope is there's still a chance that 7 states could come together in the final EIS for 2025 or 2026. Sometime along next year, maybe in 26, Met's board would take action to approve the agreements, but ultimately everything has to be done by the summer of 2026. There might be legislation needed to implement the agreements. We'll have to see about that. So the next steps is we're attempting to develop a 7-state plan. Yesterday, the 7 states got together to see if there was an appetite to come up with a plan. I think there was a little bit of movement. So there's still hope that we can have a 7-state plan, because if we don't have 7 states together by the summer of 26, litigation is a real possibility. So there's still hope for a 7-state plan. We still need to figure out what to do in the lower basin with those really dry scenarios. We know that repeat of the last 25 years, we have a plan, but under those really dry climate change scenarios, we still have to figure out how we're going to share that in the lower basin. So we'll be working on that over the summer, as well as the intrastate agreements, the agreements with IID, with Coachella, PVID. We know we can live at this lower level, but how we're going to pay for it, what terms and conditions, those are going to be some difficult and lengthy negotiations. And so with all of that, where we're going to need your help along the way is there'll be key points where you can participate through the public process, through comments on the draft EIS, comments on the final EIS, and to the extent things fall apart and California has to go it alone, we're going to need to brief our congressional delegation, Sacramento, to be ready in case we don't have a plan. By far, our hope is 7 states come together and our boards voluntarily approve these set of agreements. But if we fall into acrimony, then we need to have a plan B prepared, and that is getting our legal team ready and getting our legislators ready to act if needed. So thank you for your time this morning, and the next 2 years will be a key, will determine the next generation of reliability from the Colorado River.
Great. Thank you very much, Bill. Anybody have questions or comments? Director Denstedt.
So welcome to the world that I now operate in. And I've had the opportunity to talk to Bill on a number of occasions now. I've gone out to Crewa a couple of times, and I'm sure all of your heads are spinning over how much history is behind this. I've had a number of sit-downs with Bill going, okay, start at this point, and then I say, okay, stop, I've had enough. Let me digest this, and then I'll pick it up later again. It's a lot of information, a lot of history behind this. Bill is absolutely the guru of everything Colorado River. He wasn't joking when he said Crua is, it's what, 3-4 times the size of Aqua when you go to these conferences. It's enormous. You guys were there this last time. It's just incredible. At the breakfast, they have all of the rooms set up by states, okay? And you go to your state for your, it's something to see. And I'm sure Vegas is probably the only place that's really large enough to hold a convention of that size. So, to talk to people, to get perspective, to understand what Met's challenges are. We have a number of Met directors that sit on different boards and panels that talk about Colorado River and are part of the negotiations and discussions. And every time that Crua puts on a hosted program, I've been signing up for that to go and just hear another piece of the history and hear different speakers that come in with their perspective from a variety of different areas. And, and then getting a whole different world of variety, talking about the tribes and the concerns of the tribes that are on the river. So thank you, Bill, for coming out here. This is, I know, a drive for you, but welcome to my world, because, I did that the last couple of days. And we really appreciate everything that you do, not just on behalf of Western's family, but on behalf of Met's family. We really appreciate how you are so fully dialed in and engaged in this process, and the advice and what you do to educate all of us coming in that really want to dial in and try to figure out what's going on. I've so appreciated our conversations together and everything that you have, educated me on, and hope to learn a lot more, because I know there's a lot more, and I can only take it in small bites because you just go blah, 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 because you just know it so well. You have lived and breathed this for how many years now?
20.
There we go. So he'd been around the block a couple of times on the Colorado River, and I welcome you to ask your questions. You have got the expert in the room to ask anything you need to ask to figure out what's going on with Colorado River.
Okay, great. Questions?
I saw Laura taking notes. No questions?
I always take notes.
Mr. Miller?
So, 2 questions. We have 1.6 million acre feet of very valuable water sitting back there, and this looming deadline of 2026 with these agreements. Comment for the board on the fate of that water. What could happen?
Yeah, well, we're not going to lose it, right? It's our water. It's extremely important to us, right? We've used that in every single drought to help fill the Colorado River Aqueduct. But now we'll have a new use for it. We'll still use it to fill the aqueduct in dry years, but in years when California has to make a shortage or a contribution, we can either reduce our diversions or take that water out of Lake Mead. So it really gives us a lot of flexibility going forward that we can still ensure. I mean, that's our primary goal, is fill the aqueduct when the state water project is low, right? And that storage will help us do that.
And my second question is, you talked about the sharing of the reductions as California as a whole of 440,000. How's that shared in California?
Yeah, those are the discussions we're going to have this summer, right? So,
And maybe for the board, could you talk about who the other partners are in California?
sure. So Met takes about 25% of the water in California from the Colorado River. 60% goes to Imperial Irrigation District, the largest irrigation district in the nation. And the remaining 15, is PVID and Coachella Valley Water District, two other irrigation. But really, IID is the big dog in California. On the river, they use more water than many of the upper basin states. And they've been key in transferring water to Southern California, San Diego, and Met both. And they're going to be key to any solution on the river. They're going to have to further step up and use less water. In the short run, their goal is 250,000 acre feet. Perhaps that's their number in the long run. But that's a key. We can't have only the urban entities in the basin reduce use. It's got to be a joint effort of ag and urban entities working together in the new reality.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
I do have
Oh, that's fine, too.
just two things. One, something that's very interesting, just a recent addition to our board for Region 9 for Aqua. We have a director from IID that has joined us, and she is a farmer. She is a longtime farmer. And so really interesting perspective and discussions coming from her. So I look forward to really having some bigger relationships with her as we move forward, and she is a part of our Region 9 board for Aqua.
Great.
Number two, Bill, if we have to go towards a legislative solution, are you anticipating drafting some type of preferred language that you'll be sharing with the member agencies to be able to advocate to our legislative, whether it be, you know, the state side, federal side, or whoever we need to try to knock on their door and get a response to?
Yeah, absolutely. It's likely we'll need both state legislation in Sacramento and federal legislation from DC. When we did the quantification settlement agreement to reduce our use 20 years ago, we needed state legislation. Part of that is to deal with the Salton Sea, and that's a whole nother conundrum is part of this issue, and I know it's just over the hill here. It's shrinking because of the transfers from IID to Southern California. If IID has to further reduce its use to protect the system, then it's going to shrink more, and someone has to step up and deal with that. And hopefully it's the state, right? Hopefully it's the state, and that would require state legislation to get that all done. But that's a big piece that we still have to figure out, is how we're going to prevent dust, the dust issue out in the
Right.
Imperial Valley.
Right. Which is also interesting because Patrick O'Dowd is our chair this year for Region 9, who sits on the
Oh,
Salton
right.
Sea Authority. So
Yes.
some interesting, some interesting relationships that we can cultivate for you on Region 9 board for what we have a relationship with. And I've been sitting on that board with Patrick for a number of years. And he's a very dynamic individual to have conversations with, but he's very
Yes.
knowledgeable about the area. We went on a Salton Sea tour last year with Region 9 that was very productive and very educational for a lot of people. I know the members here that joined found it fascinating, and so much history that goes as a piece of that. So, there are resources and other avenues to pursue to be able to get to the end game too. So just want to kind of open the door there and let the opportunity shine.
Great, thank you.
Director Roten.
I think this is just for clarification, because there was a lot of information that you gave us. I had written down in '07, the guidelines allowed Met to store water in Mead. My first, question related to that is, when we were hearing the headlines like Mead's almost at dead pool, if it had kept going, blah, 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 would that, say it had gotten to that level, would that have prevented us from being allowed to take the water that was technically ours?
Yeah, so there are some limitations on using stored water in Mead. And if Mead were to get down to a level of about 20% full, then during those times, we couldn't access that water, yes. I think the lowest we ended up was about 30%, maybe 28%, so we were getting relatively close. Now we're about 40%, so we're back up. But that's through 2026. We're going to have new rules after that. So we know now we're good in the short term. Part of the negotiations is how we're going to use this storage for the next 20 years, which I used to think 20 years was a long time until now it's been 20 years already. What happened?
So long. Okay, well, so sort of related to that, I also think and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I heard you say that Arizona actually had control of the water levels in Mead. And maybe they were keeping them at particular levels that were more beneficial for them. Is that, am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, so there was like a loophole in the guidelines that said if Mead was just above a shortage level, then extra water would be released from Lake Powell. And then to help. And so Arizona, the way they operate is they move water in their groundwater basin or not. And so they would leave water in to stay above shortage, but take water out to make sure you got those extra releases. So they called it a sweet spot. If they could operate in the sweet spot, and they had this graph explaining how they're managing the sweet spot to get extra water releases from the upper basin, but avoid a shortage in Arizona. And it really left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And that still resonates today, is why there's this distrust of the rules. So that's why we're trying to have rules that you can't manipulate. If it's based on total system storage, then you can't make these weird adjustments to manipulate the system.
Right. Because my understanding is that Lake Powell also was extremely low. But yet they were still able to draw from that, it sounds like.
Well, they drawed before it dropped, so Lake Powell didn't really get to go up because they were getting the extra releases. And then the really dry years hitting Lake Powell went down. So the upper basin is saying it's the lower basin's fault that Powell's this low. Had they not been gaming the system, we would have been in better shape going into that drought.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of, finger pointing and distrust. And so we're trying to get over that now and say, hey, can we work together, right?
So philosophically, for my limited knowledge observation, it seems like it's a little bit like Northern and Southern California. You've got the upper and the lower basin, and the one thinks the other is using too much or taking too much, and that's the same, picture that we're seeing, not with everyone, but with certain people in the state of California. So I guess so, because it's a commodity and people want to hold on to it, and it's important to everyone. I get that. So I like that, and I think we're trying to do it in California too. California water for all, so Colorado River water for all, upper, lower, even down into Mexico. I mean, they must just be getting a trickle at this point. So anyway, sorry, that's probably more of a comment or an observation than a question, but thank you. This, I have to say, even just looking through this before the meeting, it was, like Brenda said, you can take it in pieces. Some of the pages, I was like, I'll wait for his presentation on that one, because.
Yeah, some of it, sorry for
But
some of it being too detailed.
It's good, and it's good that we hear it and that we see it. It's really important. And I appreciate all the explaining that you did, and like Brenda also said, the historical knowledge that you have. Because this is a story. Water is a story, and it continues on into perpetuity. It's just a matter of what is that story going to look like. So thank you very much for this.
Yeah, and your observation, it's during my time at Met, your friends and enemies change constantly, right? So there's some times when IID's been suing us. Not that long ago, IID was suing us, and there was a distrust between our agencies. Now we're on the same page going forward, but that could change again. Arizona was suing us, and we were fighting with Arizona just a few years ago. Now we're working with Arizona. So, but that doesn't mean we won't be fighting with them again in the next couple of years. So you keep your friends closer and your enemies closer. They're, right, the upper basin and the lower basin don't trust each other, but we might be working with them someday, or maybe just the Urban Coalition. We've got a lot in common with Denver Water, with Salt Lake Water. So sometimes it's ag versus urban. All of those are constantly in play. But the one thing that seems to be common is people don't trust people from LA, right? No matter where you go, right? That's, there's sort of like a badge you have. If you're from Southern California, LA, then you're already starting from behind.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Bill. And just a quick comment. You'll see Bill on television news when there is important stuff happening on the river. He's more than a spokesperson for Met. He really is probably the expert and is recognized as such by the media. And that says quite a bit. So thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you for your kind words. Appreciate it.
And you know, in public safety, Bill, when you were on the news and you were the speaker, you had to buy everybody ice cream. So, just saying.
Okay, now we'll do consent calendar. Got 5 items. Anybody wish to pull any of them for discussion? And if not, do we have a motion?
Move the item.
Second.
I don't need to pull, but I need to abstain on the minutes on A. So I wasn't here.
Okay, Tammy, when the system is ready, if you would do a roll call vote, please.
Yes. Director Dennstedt?
Aye.
Director Roten is abstaining. Director Rizvi?
Aye.
On just A, Director Roten?
Just A.
Your vote for the remainder items?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Director Rizvi?
Aye.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0 for items B through E and 4-1 for item A, with Director Roten abstaining.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Miller, anything to add to the agenda?
Nothing to add today?
Thank you. Our action agenda, our first item is to conduct a public hearing and adopt resolution 3309, establishing a water filling station rate. And I have a script for that. So this is the time and place set for the public hearing regarding the water filling station rate.
Yeah, there's a notice of, the hearing for the proposed rate has been properly given. I have proof of publication, which shows the notice was published in the Press Enterprises newspaper of general circulation, Riverside County, on April 22nd and May 1st of 2024.
Okay, those documents are ordered, received, and filed.
Well, the board is being asked to adopt the proposed water filling station rate at 9 cents per gallon, as stated in Resolution 3309. The proposed rate reflects the estimated fixed and variable costs associated with providing water to the general public at the filling station, as further detailed in the cost of service study report included as an attachment of the board letter. Now, this filling station is located in the Gavilan Hills area of our Riverside service area, and use of the filling station allows members of the public without a direct connection to Western Water's distribution system to purchase potable water when needed, such as when a private well is not functioning or drought conditions prevent sufficient pumping of water from a well.
Okay, thank you. The hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience or online that wishes to speak?
I have no requests to speak and nobody online, and I've received no written comments.
Okay, thank you very much. That being the case, if there are no further comments, I declare the public hearing closed. Matter is now before the board for discussion.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any discussion? I'll point out that this was discussed at some length in a committee. And it does offer some flexibility to those who need water, but don't have a direct connection to us, to obtain water without stealing it, which has been known to happen. So with that, Tammy, when the system is ready, if you do a roll call vote.
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Dennstedt?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Risby?
Aye.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, our second one is to approve a side letter agreement to the 21 to 26 Memorandum of Understanding between Western Municipal Water District and the Western Municipal Water District Employee Association, and another side letter of agreement to the 2021 to 26 Confirmation of Understanding between Western Municipal Water District and the Management Professional Confidential Employees.
All right.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, thank you, President Gardner. Candy Judd's going to come up and present this. We took it to the Finance Committee, and we're going to follow new laws, and that's what this is all about. Did we get the camera adjusted appropriately?
We did. Thank you.
He was tall. He was very tall.
I can't get any taller. Thank you, Craig. Good morning, President Gardner, Board of Directors, staff, and I looked around. I don't see any other public guests, but they might be online, so welcome. And we did bring this item in front of the committee as well. We're asking for approval of a side letter to Western Water's agreement between the Employee Association and a side letter between Western Water's agreement with our Professional Management and Confidential Employees Agreement as well. And side letters are that mechanism that we use in order to update language as necessary with these agreements. And the language that is being requested to be updated is very minor, and it pertains to the new sick leave laws for the state of California. We need to maintain consistency with what the state of California approves as laws, and we do. We follow the law, but we figured we needed to update our language in both of these agreements in order to make sure that special leave, which is the section in each of these agreements that has a minor change, but our special leave for sick leave allows employees to use their sick leave credits to care for a family member that has a medical condition or needs treatment. And so our previous language or current language in the MOU and the COU, those are the agreement names that we shorten those agreement names. And the special leave says, we give you 48 hours. You have 48 hours that you can use for special leave. But we didn't consider what that does for our folks that are on a 4-10 schedule. They work a 10-hour day, so the 48 hours would not be consistent with the California state laws. And so we needed to update that language for both agreements to reflect that we need to provide our folks that work a 4-10 schedule with 50 hours rather than 48. So that's consistent with California state law, and that is the request for the approval for these side letters. And I will give it back over to the general manager in case there's any questions.
Thank you, Candy. So, we obviously meet with both groups. No questions, no comments, they understand it. So not an issue with the employees, so hopefully the board will consider it.
I just add, we really don't have a lot of choice in this. It is state law, we need to comply.
Yeah, you kind of don't, and we want to have our language updated so employees that are looking at the agreements understand what their rights are as well.
And I will say that, the employees pay attention to this, obviously, and it's been brought up before that, that is an issue for some employees, so it's good to clean it up.
Move to approve.
We did a motion and a second.
Oh, you did?
I'm sorry.
Double moved.
We didn't move.
Seconded.
Thank
I
you.
didn't hear that.
No,
Sorry.
we didn't hear it. It wasn't.
We did.
Thank you.
Tammy, will you take one of those motions and second? And when the system is ready,
I absolutely will. Thank you very much. Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Denstedt.
Aye.
Director Roten.
Yes.
Director Risby.
Aye.
Director Gardner.
aye.
Thank you, President Gardner. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Candy.
Thank you, Kat.
Next item is to amend a professional services contract for construction management and inspection with LAE Associates Incorporated for the Woodcrest Area Water Pipeline Replacement Project.
Thank you. Derek is here to give the board the details.
Trying to make sure I'm looking in the camera. Okay,
Keep going.
great.
A little bit more,
Thank you.
please.
A little bit more? Okay. Great.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So, Good morning, directors and staff. I'm here to present on the item for CM inspection contract with LEA Associates. This is for the Woodcrest Pipeline Replacement Project. This is a project where we are, renewing our infrastructure. And what we need to do is, because of the project extension, we need to continuously have inspectors available. So we have an additional $72,550 that we would like to extend the contract with LAE, who's doing the construction management inspections for us on that project. This would make the contract amount go from $274,481.55 to a new total amount of $347,031.55. And we do have on the line Kevin El Mohada. He's with LAE if you have any questions. And we are not asking for any budget adjustment because this remains within the originally approved budget for the project. I now invite any questions.
Are there any questions?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Mohada, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
Not at this time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Tammy, when the system is ready, if you call the roll, please.
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Denstedt?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Aye.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Next item is to approve a reimbursement agreement with Riverside County Flood Control and Water Conservation District for the Woodcrest Reinhardt Acres waterline relocations.
Yeah, this is something that we need to do to accommodate flood control projects. So Derek presented this to the committee, and he'll give the board the details.
Great. So this is a reimbursement agreement with Riverside County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. And essentially, this is a requirement when we are working within the public right-of-way, which we have these pipelines that are there, and the overlining owner, which in this case is the county, has a need to have us relocate those facilities, then we're obligated to do a relocation. So we've worked out a design for doing that. It's certain portions of the pipelines that serve that area. We've done a design, and we're prepared to take that design and have it within the packet that the county is going to use when they put it out for bid. So in that way, it's most efficient that the contractor that wins it would do the work to do the relocation, and then we would just pay for the cost of doing those relocations in support of their project for the flood control improvements. Now, this particular agreement is going to require a adjustment to our budget and our capital improvement and facilities plan. It's going to require an adjustment from $180,000, which we had asked for previously for just doing the design, and we're increasing it to $1,232,700. And we're asking for approval of the agreement that is attached to the staff report. I will note that we did go over this in the engineering committee, and I do want to note that we do have Sue Chung from the county that's available if we have any questions. And I open it up for questions.
Okay, any questions or comments from board members? Not, I'd look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Chung, I assume that you are okay with us doing this?
Yes, I'm okay with it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, Tammy, when the system is ready.
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Denstedt?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi? President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, directors.
Thank you, Derek. Next item is to consider approving a water purchase and storage agreement between the City of Ontario and Western.
All right. as you'll recall, the board said, go out and acquire water. So we're busy acquiring. And so Ryan and his team has been working really hard on this, and we've really had some great success. So this is the next phase of that success. So Ryan's with us on Zoom today. So Ryan, can you give the board the details?
Absolutely. Thank you, Craig. Good morning, board members. Hope you're all doing well. Apologies for not being there in person. As Craig said, about a year ago, the board authorized up to $20 million worth of purchase of wet year water supplies for dry year future storage. Believe it or not, this is our 5th agreement in the last year that we made with some partnering agencies. So this agreement in front of you today is with the City of Ontario for 3,000 acre feet of existing stored water for a price tag of $2,331,000. The Chino Basin has an existing market, if you will, where agencies within the basin buy and sell amongst each other. So we feel that we've got a fair deal. It's within the market rate. So we're really excited to bring another 3,000 acre feet, of stored water that will be available in dry years for our retail and wholesale customers. To date, that brings our total to about 8,700 acre feet of stored water for future use in dry years. This agreement with Ontario also includes options to meet each year on a go-forward basis. So if Ontario, for example, has excess water or surplus water available, we'll meet with them and see if they're interested in selling and see if we're interested in buying. So that's a nice term as part of the agreement. As a reminder, the water stored in Chino Basin, we don't have our own straw in that basin, but we have exchange agreements and in lieu agreements, as well as the physical connection between the Chino Desalter Authority all the way over to the Arlington Desalter, which can feed our retail customers as well as our wholesale customers. So in terms of how we're going to use this water on a go-forward basis, we have quite a bit of options. And in addition to that, we could always turn around and sell the water to other in-basin, in Chino Basin parties if and when they have needs for it. With that, I'll take any questions.
Brian, just one quickly. Do you know off the top of your head of the 20 million that was authorized, how much is now committed with this agreement?
I should know that. It's probably about 40%.
Okay.
Ballpark. Don't quote me on that. But, maybe a little less.
I think you're about right, Ryan. I believe a month ago we did provide a table under the water supply update of that. We can refresh it and bring it back again.
It's just, we're making good progress. And,
well,
congratulations to staff for doing that.
Well, thank you. And, you know, it's, these deals take a lot of time. And so what Ryan and his team has pulled off in less than a year is amazing. You know, we're usually talking about acquisition. You heard Bill Hazenkamp talk about, 25 years and we're still arguing about the same things. You know, our team's gone out and acquired a lot of water and parked it for, dry years in a very, very short period of time.
Done a
We need one
fantastic
of those
job.
thermometers, but draining instead.
Ours is filling.
Draining the 20, filling
Draining the 20 million, yeah.
We're converting
Director
paper into
Torres,
water.
I have to correct you. We're investing.
Oh,
We're not draining, we're investing.
I don't know what thermometer identifies that, but that's good.
We're not draining water. Our CFO made sure that we're investing in a good commodity here.
Well, and we're purchasing it at a rate below what we would be able to have normally bought it met.
Well, and not only that, but obviously, water's an escalating commodity all the time. So, buying now and saving the water for when we need it. And, when Ryan says, well, there is an option that we could, sell it to other people, and then we'd take that money and go buy supply somewhere else, most likely. So it really is a solid investment. And, I appreciate the board having the the forethought and the strategic initiative to do that. And, Ryan and his team, again, has just done a great job, following that direction. So it's really good.
Yeah, move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. I just comment that we are converting money into water, and there are those customers of ours who can turn the water into wine. So, okay, Tammy, if you would do a roll call.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Roten.
Yes.
Director Risby. President Gardner.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, and Ryan now needs to go out and find the rest of the.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And I will bet you he's working on it.
Thanks, thanks.
Our last action item is to approve or consider approving construction operations and maintenance agreements and funding for proposed Western Riverside County Regional Wastewater Authority recycled water facilities.
Yeah, Ryan's going to present this again, but maybe just to do a little lead-in. I literally was working on this the day I got to Western to establish the water rights to be able to do this someday. So we're finally to the stage where, and it's taken a lot of work to actually create the business and the business model for recycled water program out of RCRA. And so a lot of work has gone into this, and we're finally to the part where we're starting to develop the revenue for the for the programs and the projects. So this is an important step in a long effort. So Ryan?
Thank you, Craig. Good morning again. Next slide, please. Good introduction there, Craig. Just as a quick background, I think everybody is aware of this, but RCRA is a 5-agency JPA formed to provide wastewater collection. It's currently a 14 million gallon per day MGD plant, and Western Water is the administrator and operator of the plant. Next slide, please. A little more background. As Craig alluded to, back in 2018, RCRA and Western were able to secure a change of use order from the State Water Resources Control Board that gave us the permit that allows us to reuse this recycled water that historically has been going down the Santa Ana River. We do have to do some environmental monitoring, which we've been doing since 2018 and will continue going forward. But with that change of use order, that permit, we are able to reuse 100% of the recycled water at the RCRA plant on a go-forward basis. The RCRA team had contemplated this recycled water program for a number of years now. There are going to be direct use customers for irrigation purposes, so that's parks, schools, medians, things like that, even industrial, potentially industrial users. There's going to also be some internal transfers as well as external exchanges and/or potential sales to maximize the use of that up to 10 MGD, million gallons per day of recycled water. In terms of guiding documents, so we've been before the board 4 times now in the past year and a half. The first time we brought a non-binding letter of interest. Second time we brought an MOU, getting a little more specific on what the details might look like in terms of ownership and who wants to buy into how much capacity of these proposed facilities. A few months ago, we brought forward capacity ownership terms and conditions, which the board approved, as well as all the other RCRA member agencies and RCRA itself approved. And the item before you today, what we're calling capacity ownership agreements. So this is where we're finally going to sign on the dotted line in terms of buying in, what that looks like in terms of cost, as well as what kind of capacity ownership in terms of the infrastructure that Western and the other parties will own. Next slide, please. So you've seen this one before. On the left-hand side, that's just an aerial view of RCRA, and you see a couple colored lines there that are just kind of showing how and where the water will move. On the right-hand side is just a schematic, which is a little more blown up, and you can see right there, kind of in the middle, this new proposed pump station, highlighted in blue box, in a blue box there. And then you've got water that will go to the left in the green line, which is what we're calling the northerly pipeline, 24-inch pipeline. That's the water that, that's the pipeline that probably Western's water will move forward into. And that goes all the way up into Harupa's service area and will hopefully potentially connect to Inland Empire Utilities Agency existing recycled water system. And so that's from a Western perspective where our sale may occur. We have other options, but that's currently what's being negotiated and what's on the table. The light blue line, what we call the southerly pipeline coming out of the new pump station, that's going to be a Corona, City of Corona pipeline. They are going to pay for and own and operate that without the other RIC Remember agencies. So the two agreements that are before you do not include the southerly pipeline. The two agreements before you are for the pump station specifically and the northerly pipeline specifically. So Western is not going to be contributing to the southerly pipeline capital cost. However, I will say about a year and a half ago, if you recall, we did sell a cell within the River Road bridge to the City of Corona so that they could actually move this recycled water to their existing recycled water system. Next slide, please. Okay, so starting with the pump station, again, both the pump station and the northerly pipeline ownership is going to be based on proposed capacity request. The estimated cost for the pump station is about 19 million. You'll see here it says 16 million, and that's because Harupa Community Services District has a grant of just over $3 million that they have kindly offered to share with all of the RIC Remember agencies. So that drops the total capital cost from 19 to 16 million. That includes planning, design, construction, and a 10% contingency. On the table on the right-hand side, you can see each agency's requested ownership capacity in terms of million gallons per day, what that looks like in a percentage, and then the cost share. For Western, we have requested 1.54 million gallons per day of ownership capacity, and that is what we estimate as our total build out. So purchasing 1.54 million gallons per day of capacity should cover us for all of our future recycled water that comes available to us. That equates to just over 15% of the total pump station in terms of ownership capacity, and a little under $2.5 million of capital cost to Western. Western plans to pay for that through our La Sierra Wastewater Fund over the next 2 fiscal years, which is the time frame for construction of the pump station. You can see there in fiscal year 24, it's 25, 1.2 million, and 25-26 about 1.3 million. So a total of about 2.5 million. Capital cost from a Western perspective. Next slide, please. So the second agreement and infrastructure, what we call the northerly pipeline. We may have skipped one. There we go. It's about the same. So again, it's based on ownership capacity of our request of 1.54 million gallons per day, 15%. The total estimated cost for the northerly pipeline is $16.7 million for planning, design, construction. Again, 10% contingency. Similarly for Western, that's about $2.5 million in capital cost. Next slide, please. There is an option on the table. Again, our friends over at Harupa, they are working on securing a financing arrangement because they are the lead on constructing both the pump station and the northerly pipeline. They're working on a financing arrangement for a 30-year deal. Interest currently estimated to be 8%, with a fixed admin fee of about 5%. That's still in the works, so you'll see in a couple slides on the recommendation, we're pausing a little bit on the northerly pipeline and a little more detail in the schedule, which is why we're comfortable with this. But for example, if Western was willing to accept the terms of the financing option, it would be about $100,000 per year from that same fund over the 30-year term. So we do expect that'll come to fruition, and when we see the final terms, we'll end up coming back to the board, either suggesting to join the financing option or ask the board for approval for approximately $2.5 million out of the wastewater fund. Next slide, please. Okay, a couple key takeaways from the two agreements that are before you. RCRA will own and operate the on-site pump station. JCSD will own and operate the northerly pipeline, and I did mention Corona will own and operate that southerly pipeline, but that's not on a part of either of these two agreements. Each of the RCRA member agencies will be responsible for payment of construction, operations, and maintenance of their requested capacity. And again, Western's requested capacity is 1.54 million gallons per day, about 15%, and total capital cost of about $5 million. And again, that $5 million could be a little bit different if we elected to select the financing option that Harupa's put on the table for us. Next slide, please. So where are we? Next step schedule. So this month, all the RCRA member agencies are going to their respective boards and councils for approval of these capacity ownership agreements. Pump station bids were received by Harupa back in February. They finalized the construction costs in March. And last month, Harupa awarded construction contracts to a number of contracting agencies to construct the proposed pump station. So on a different schedule, the northerly pipeline, Harupa expects to receive bids this month, also finalize those construction costs, and they hope to award a construction contract or contracts for the northerly pipeline next month, June of this year. Next slide. So with that, the recommendation is to approve the capacity ownership agreements for the construction, operations, and maintenance of the proposed new RCRA recycle water facilities. And two, authorize the expenditure of up to a total of $2.5 million in capital project funds in fiscal year 25 and 26. Again, that's for the pump station, and we'll come back to the board on the northerly pipeline, considering that financing option. With that, I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions?
No. Question. It's just on the financing piece. We're not deciding that today? Okay. So we've not fully vetted that, if that's an option, or if we even need that?
We do need it, but they haven't secured all the financing or solidified it, and we haven't seen any agreement drafts.
Okay, but that is not part of the discussion today?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Move to approve.
Have a motion?
I'll second it, and just a comment that since I got onto the board, this is the, project that we've been looking forward to 4 years in the making, and I'm super excited. Great job to staff at RCRA and here to put it together, and we're excited to move it forward.
Good. With that, Tammy, if you do a roll call vote.
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Dinstead?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Aye.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our business items, brings us to reports. Mr. General Counsel.
Good morning. I have nothing for you this afternoon, morning. We're still in the morning.
Still morning. We're working on it.
It's been a long meeting.
Yeah. Mr. General Manager.
Yeah, I've got a few different things. So wanted to highlight our Western Leads Leadership Program that we've been involved in as the executive management team for a few years now. It actually started pre-pandemic. So we had our kickoff of our 2024 leadership training program with Nate Sossman in April. So that was great getting together with the EMT, really focusing this year on trust and accountability. But we also are expanding that program. So what the next tier of managers have named themselves as the Western Management Team is now using Nate also to kind of follow the same model that the EMT has in their leadership development program. So really happy that we're able to push that through the organization and get them the same great tools that we've had as the executive management team. So it's really, really fun to watch that group grow in their leadership capabilities. DC trip. So I missed the last board meeting. We kidnapped Director Roten, and we had a great trip to DC. We met with the Office of Senator Padilla, the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee for the Interior and the Environment. We met with EPA to talk about PFAS, the new PFAS treatment or regulatory standards, which is 4 parts per trillion. But more importantly, talking to them about a carve-out to protect us in CERCLA litigation. For a really interesting conversation. We got quite a bit of time with Representative Takano, met with the Bureau of Reclamation, met with Representative Issa, with Representative Calvert as always, the House Appropriations Committee, and the Office of Senator Butler. So really fruitful, great conversations. It was a very good trip. Spring conference. Last week we were up at the Aqua Spring Conference. We had a super surprise guest at the opening kickoff. Governor Newsom appeared from the darkness behind the screens to talk about his priorities, which is great to hear. You know, as we kicked off Solve the Water Crisis 2 years ago in Sacramento at Aqua, and all they would talk about was conservation is the future, to have the governor telling the Aqua Conference about his commitment to both Sites Reservoir and ensuring that Delta Conveyance gets permitted before he leaves office in 3 years was a great transition for his administration in the eyes of the water industry. So that was great to hear. And, you know, it's just great that he felt it was important enough to take some time out of his day to be there. And Secretary Crowfoot introduced him and had some great comments as well. I was fortunate to participate on a panel in the Aqua Policy Forum right after the governor was there. So that was really fun. I think got a lot of compliments from participants as we walked around. A lot of promotion of California Water for All. And that panel, we had panelists from up and down the state, so really enjoyed that. We also had a reception to thank our sponsors and our supporters for California Water for All on Wednesday night. I had a ton of meetings. I went to my panel and one other panel. Other than that, I was stationed at meetings the whole time, so great meetings with Michelle Reimers from Tiroak Irrigation District, Paul Cook, Jack Beebe from Fallbrook. You know, they've left San Diego Water Authority's service area and joined Easterns, so it's interesting to get his perspective on that. Christine McCaffrey is the new GM at Callegas, so we spent some time with her and her team. I went to dinner with Dan Denham, who's the new general manager at Water Authority, and also with Jennifer Pierre, who's the general manager of the state contractor. So that was a great dinner to really compare notes on statewide issues and big picture Met issues. And then had a really successful meeting on Thursday morning, lunchtime. I've been pulling together GMs from the Met family. These are the same GMs that have been collaborating with us on these letters that we've been sending in on camp and now on the Met business model. So we're trying to hold that group together. It's about 12 GMs, so we had a hour and a half long meeting where, you know, we're really talking strategy on how we try and navigate this business model and the Camp for Water task force to bring those to a conclusion. And my push is to really keep Met focused on Met's approved mission by the board of directors and not get scope creep, because that scope creep is leaning away from being the supplemental water importer that we need, and that you heard Bill talk about how, you know, Colorado River issues is our ultimate safety net for both affordability and for water supply. And, you know, that's been Met's primary mission, and it's what it was formed for. And so we need to make sure that they stay laser focused on that. That's what we need them for out here at Western, and want to make sure that they don't creep into other issues, because that'll end up costing us a lot of money. Someone has to finance all of those other issues. And you heard a public comment about affordability, and, you know, we are really driven to maintain affordability for our customers, and that's an important part of that process. I had a great day yesterday. I got out of the office. I went to our North Well Treatment Project construction site. So you'll recall we're putting treatment on the North Well. Our ops team, Paul's still here. Paul was out there with us. It was great. But our ops team said, we're going to build that in-house. We can do this. We don't need to hire a contractor and pay them profit. We'll do it ourselves. Hopefully they don't think they're going to get the profit. I don't know if you had that talk with them, or they think they're getting profit out of this. I don't know. We'll talk later. But watching our team out there, you know, literally welding the pipes together and pouring concrete and building that project is really rewarding to see. And you can just see the pride that, you know, they're able to do that. It's really great. And we've got, you know, our construction crews are out there. We have the electrical and automation. We got mechanical services. We got water quality out there. It's literally everyone is lending a hand and building part of that project. So that was really fun yesterday. Want to thank the board for our workshops on the budget. That was great. We got one more to go. We will brief Director Denstedt. She was up at Met. I already talked to Tim, and we're going to schedule that with Tammy so we can catch you up so you're ready for the third workshop. But really, you know, I really insightful questions, good comments. It's exactly what we want to get out of the workshop, so looking forward to the third workshop and ultimately bringing that for consideration at the first meeting in June. The presentation by Bill was great. We've got more scheduled. So June 5th, Adele Hodge-Khalil and Adon Ortega are going to be here to do kind of the same thing. We're trying to keep them a little longer so we can meet with them afterwards too, but looking forward to that on the 5th. And then the following board meeting, we've got some special guests from DWR and from the Delta Conveyance Authority to give us an update on what's happening on Delta Conveyance. Obviously a hot topic at Aqua, especially after the governor said he is committed to doing this. So look forward to those next couple meetings. Sarah, would you like to talk about Capio?
Sure, it would be my pleasure. Good morning, Board of Directors. You may or may not be aware, but this week we have staff attending the California Association of Public Information Officials Conference. It is an annual conference where we get to brush up on our communication skills and learn from our colleagues. But I'm incredibly proud to share that Western Water was recognized yesterday at the conference with an award of distinction for our comprehensive community engagement approach supporting the North Well quality improvement activities, really focused on resolving color concerns through a variety of operational and engineering solutions. This project was really to further meet the needs of our customers. We needed to develop a comprehensive outreach approach so we could open the lines of two-way communication and provide timely, accurate information to customers and stakeholders, along with a streamlined way to handle complaint resolution. The campaign did effectively dispel rumors and significantly reduce the number of questions and complaints by keeping our customers who are most affected actively informed and engaged. But really, this recognition is a testament to our one-team approach that this project required, from support from our board to coordination between operations, engineering, finance, and communication. It really took every member of the team, their unique talents to this project so that we would be successful and capable of delivering on our brand promise of superior service, all in support of our customers in Murrieta. So congratulations to the team, and we appreciate the recognition from Capio.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions on that? I'm going to turn it over to Ryan next to give our water supply update. Any questions before we go?
Looks like not.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Ryan, all yours.
Sounds good. Thanks, Craig. I'm a little sheepish trying to follow our good friend Bill Hazenkamp on a water supply conditions update. So don't judge me too harshly. I'll do my best. But here we go. Next slide. So we're gonna, as always, hydrologic conditions update. Next slide. Starting up in Northern Sierra snowpack, things are still looking pretty good. 22.6 inches of water content so far. And you can see there on the chart that we're above normal or average slightly. But as always, as we get out of the winter and spring months, everything tends to go down the curve. But we're still at 131% of normal, so still looking really good. Next slide, please. Similar graphic on the Upper Colorado side. Again, we had a really good March and April, and maybe even a little early May. But you can see it's kind of right on average or normal, 9.9 inches of water content, about 106% of normal. So kind of right on cue, if you will. Next slide, please. Us water nerds, we really love this graphic. This is a graphic showing all the major water reservoirs throughout the state. And so blue is really good. And blue is above the average storage level in almost every single reservoir throughout the state. So the last 2 years have risen these levels tremendously and putting us in a really good position going forward. I remember back in 2021 maybe showing this same graphic and everything was yellow. There was very little blue. So this is really exciting again for us water resources folks, just to see how much water is in storage. That being said, we can always do more, and that's our intention collectively throughout the state. Next slide. A little more locally focused. You've seen this slide for the last couple months. Starting on the left, the LA watershed is about 129% of average in terms of precipitation. So far, it's been 24 inches, and the average is about 18 to 19 inches. So again, 129% above average. Moving over to the Santa Ana watershed, again, still looking good. 123% of average, about 21 to 22 inches of precipitation. The average is about 17 inches, so again, up above the normal. And then on the far right side, Santa Margarita, 120% of average, 16 inches so far this year, and in between the average of 13 to 14% on average. Next slide, please. Again, you've seen this one a little bit. We modified some of the details in the blue callouts there. Starting on the top right, Seven Oaks Dam. Currently, there's about 2,200 acre feet behind the dam. However, so far this year, we've been able to release and recharge, with the help of our partners, almost 23,000 acre feet of water that goes into that San Bernardino basin, which benefits Western customers as well as Valley District customers. Moving over to Prado Dam, as Craig mentioned at the last meeting, the conservation pool is about 20,000 acre feet, and that's the capacity behind the dam of how much water we can hold. Currently, there's about half of that, 10,000 acre feet, But thanks to flood control districts, Army Corps districts, and Orange County Water District, Orange County Water District has been able to recharge a significant amount of water, pretty much everything that ends up behind the dam thus far this year. In our backyard, Lake Matthews, about 135,000 acre feet, which is about 75% full, which is about standard for Lake Matthews. As a reminder, that's the terminus of the Colorado River Aqueduct. So they always want to have a little bit of buffer space at Lake Matthews. And then finally, Diamond Valley Lake, it's about 725,000 acre feet full, which is 90% of its total capacity. And as we know, this directly feeds Western, Eastern, and others. So that's really nice to see that they've been able to refill Diamond Valley after the drought of a few years ago. Next slide. Okay, we've actually got a video here, if it'll work for us. If not, I can walk us through it. Sorry, Justin. Okay, so what you're looking at is newly constructed channel and recharge basins just downstream of Seven Oaks Dam. So these are the water rights that Western and Valley District own, along with our plaintiff parties. They've been able to move a substantial amount of water this year. There is ongoing construction for additional recharge basins, but this is a video. Kudos to San Bernardino Valley District for sharing this with us. They and the Conservation District and others are the lead in constructing. Western is a funding partner along with our plaintiff parties. But just wanted to give you a little aerial footage just to show you how much is going on. And there's going to be more to come on this. There's going to be an additional 20 basins above and beyond what's already constructed, along with I believe it's 50 inlet and outlet facilities. So a lot more to come on that, but that's really exciting. This ties to Western Valley's water permit that we have with the State Water Resources Control Board that was achieved over 20 years ago now. So seeing the actual construction of these projects coming to fruition is pretty exciting. Okay, just a brief reminder. This is just showing drought conditions over the last 5 or 10 years. If you recall, back in 2021, the state actually developed a new drought category, which is kind of the dark brown that you see there, because it was so drastic through that 3-year drought period, the worst on record. Fortunately, as you see at the end of the graphic there, we're finally out of that and looking really good in terms of water supply. So drought conditions are at a minimum. Next slide, please. Just a couple fun facts. For water year 23-24, 2 projects that we're keenly actually invested in: the Delta Conveyance Project and the Sites Reservoir Project. So the Delta Conveyance Project that was in place this last year, there could have been, I should say, enough water for the 9.4 million people. Similar on the Sites Reservoir, it could have held enough water for yearly.
Hey, Ryan, hang on a second.
Ryan, just one moment.
We're losing your audio. The connection's bad. Give it a second. Maybe turn your video off. All right, try it again. Try again.
Ryan, you'll need to unmute.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
First time on
That's
Zoom.
what you get for being virtual. Yeah. Okay, next slide.
Oh, that's better, yeah.
Okay. I think everybody's familiar with the State Water Project update. So initially this year, it was in December is a 10% allocation. It was a slow start in terms of precip and snowpack, but through February, through April, and even a little bit in May, it improved, and we're all the way up to a 40% allocation as of April. We are still anticipating, hopefully, an additional, probably a minor increase from the state on the allocation. But we're hoping 50+% if we're optimistic, but we're still waiting to get that feedback from Department of Water Resources. Next slide. Okay, this was a late addition just because we saw it on Monday from a Metropolitan presentation. You've seen these graphics before. This is a water supply and demand balance for this current year from a Metropolitan perspective. On the left-hand side, you'll see about a little over 800,000 acre-feet of Colorado River supply and about 800,000 acre-feet of State Water Project supply, considering a 40% allocation. So that gives Metropolitan about a 1.64 million acre-feet current supply estimate. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see what that supply looks like compared to demand estimates. So total supply, total demand, 1.41 million acre-feet compared to the 1.64 million acre-feet of supply, about 230,000 acre-feet. Fortunately, that Metropolitan gets to find places to store that. And obviously, Western staff are fully engaged in those conversations and where that water will be parked. I think that's it, but next slide. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Ryan. I think the one slide that we kind of lost his audio on, I think he was going to go down the path that if we had Delta conveyance this year, we would have moved something like 930,000 acre-feet, 930,000 acre-feet that didn't get moved. So where did it go? Out to the ocean. So, you know, when you hear some people say that there's not a benefit to Delta conveyance, just think what the value is of an additional 1 million acre-feet that didn't go to customers to be sold, to cut down or help affordability. It's really bad that we are not able to move that water. This is all water that was captured, right, in the system, but couldn't be moved.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
And this may be way too broad of a question to ask here, but I don't understand when the reservoirs are almost at capacity and we still have good snowpack on the Sierras. Why only so say it's 50%. Why would it only be a 50% allocation?
Yeah, so it's a 40% allocation.
Right, but we're hoping it's
so
only-
you know, I've got my 25 cents is with you. I'm hoping for a 50. I win. So if and Jennifer Pierre talks about this, if we didn't have the environmental restrictions and the fisheries restrictions in the Delta, we would have moved a lot more water. That's the problem. And so she went through with her team and did a calculation, and under the rainfall and snowpack conditions for this year and the reservoir levels, she estimated that we should have had an allocation over 60% and maybe 70% based on historic allocations given these hydrologic conditions. So the reason it's at 40 is because of fisheries regulations. And that's why when you looked at, Ryan was talking about all of the blue on all those reservoirs, if you found the one like, where's Waldo? What's the one that wasn't blue? San Luis Reservoir. Right. San Luis Reservoir is low because that's like the parking lot for State Water Project water. It's other side of the Delta, it's south of the Delta. So as Delta contractors are taking the water out of that because of the fisheries problems in the Delta, water's not being moved in to replace it or fill it. And so that's why you get the 40%. It all has to do with the regulations and the storage levels in San Luis Reservoir.
So last year, when they went to the 100%, that was just because we had more snow?
San Luis was full. In
and-
fact, we went and watched it spilling.
Right.
It was lapping
right.
over the top because it was so wet that the fisheries regulations didn't impact DWR's ability to move it and pump it.
Wow.
Because of the flows in the delta and the way, and it, it's super complicated. I mean, we
Yeah.
could have, 5 Bill Hazen camps come from the delta side of Met's business and try and explain all the regulations. But we really need regulatory overhaul of the system. And that's why Delta Conveyance moved from, well, let's just figure out a better way to modify the channels in the Delta to, forget it, we just got to go underneath all of that and not impact the fisheries. And so that's the strategy on, the tunnel, used to be tunnels, is we just got to get out of this really tough situation with Delta Smelt and, just go below it and stay out of that so we can move water.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? If not, thank you, Ryan. And did that conclude the general manager's report?
That sure did.
Okay. Brings us then to director's reports. Starting with SAPA. SAPA itself has not met yet this month, but the Project Agreement 24 Committee, which is the committee over the brine line, did meet yesterday and recommended adoption of new brine line participation rates. Very slight increase for use of the brine line. Most of the increase is driven by increased costs from Orange County Sanitation District, but it's a very low percentage. And then the other action was to recommend acceptance of the final construction of a new lateral from the Rialto Biosolids facility, which strangely enough is located in Rialto. And they are a fairly large discharger. They were discharging into a siphon which goes through a low point, and they are fairly high TDS. There was concern that as their discharge flowed through the siphon, it would begin to settle out and plug the siphon. So they needed to build a lateral to go around the siphon. That has now been completed, and recommendation is that the SAPA board accept it as completed. And that's it for SAPA. MWD.
Okay, here we go. So let's talk about the Legislation and Communications Committee first. Two things of significant importance. So Jay Jefferson came down. He's the legislative person in Sacramento that's handling all of the discussions and tracks all the bills, and he's basically Met's Michael. He was pretty optimistic in reporting that SB 366 is going to have its amendments and changes by the time it comes to hearing in June. And so I just took that for his word of what he said, because Metropolitan still sits in a support if amended position. And so we're hoping that by the time the hearing comes about, that amendment have taken place and will have satisfied Met's concerns, and they can move into a support position. There was a lot of discussion over the Solar Cup. The Solar Cup, for those of you that may not be aware of what that is, because it kind of went into COVID when some of you came on here, but the kids went out and all the high schools and they competed in this, and it came around from Metropolitan Service member agencies and all of their retail agencies that participated in this. I've enjoyed this program for years and years and years, watching these kids construct these boats and get engaged. And it cost Metropolitan about $1 million. When COVID hit, the program kind of got mothballed and put away, and it didn't get resurrected. And many of directors have been talking about how are we going to bring this back out, given the fact that we've got some budget constraints and some rates and some things that have happened in the budget. And so really what we're looking for is we're looking to partner with specific sponsors that may come in to help support that. And I'm hoping that there's a particular member of our board that might be able to help with that. Edison has been a little slow to come forward and to assist with being a ongoing sponsor with this. So I'm really hoping that we can get some of our partnerships and cultivate some of that to get Solar Cup going, because I know so many of us have contributed so many hours to that. I know our engineering staff have gone out there and helped the kids with construction and build and giving some advice. And, if we're going to engage kids and we're going to engage our youth into getting excited about careers in what we do, they need to see it firsthand and understand and experience that. And they get to touch so many different levels of that when they participate in Solar Cup. And that allows all of those geeky kids that love to build, that love the aspects of everything that's involved with that, really flourish. And so I'm really pushing for that, along with several other directors, to try to get those sponsors and get that program started back up again and bring it to what it was intended to do. So, more to come on that. I'm going to keep pushing along with several directors from MODOC and other agencies that also want to see that program come back. Legal and claims, there's a lot of stuff going on. Unfortunately, almost everything was in closed session, and I can't discuss any of it. What I do want to let you know is that the chairman has, in fact, put together a committee that is formed solely for the settlement with San Diego County Water Authority over the litigation. And they're looking to start that up and start negotiations, and we'll see where it leads. We'll see where it leads. That litigation, for those of you who may not be aware, that's been going since just after I was elected on this board. It's been going for more than 14 years. It's significant amount of legal costs that have been involved with that. A lot of litigation flying on both sides. At this point, I think with the ruling that came out, was it a year ago now? The ruling that came out that Metropolitan prevailed, and it was a huge win for us.
That ruling just came out.
The preliminary came out and the final came out, yes. And the final just came out, which ultimately, I believe the price tag, and maybe I've got this number wrong, it was $334 million to Met's savings and credit. So huge win for Metropolitan, and a huge win for obviously us. So, there's a lot of talk about how everybody would just like to put this all to rest. And so hopefully that's in the true spirit of what we're intending to do, and hopefully that we will eventually see the end of all the stuff that's going on with that. One of the other things that came out of the Legislation and Communications Committee was a result from focus groups on water issues and public trust. And some of this was kind of interesting. The focus group, as I understood it, they only were able to put out 4 different groups. 4 groups were engaged community members and 4 groups were bottled water consumers, which was a total of 64 participants that they asked very detailed questions in it. But, it really comes down to, this one was one of the quotes that came out when they talked about the frustrations. Participants were frustrated by a perceived lack of progress and success in dealing with big water-related issues. when there's a lot of heavy rainfall, there is a lot of areas that are flooded, and that water could have been reclaimed, and unfortunately it wasn't. Was a direct quote that they preserved. It's interesting that, you know, people, you go further on down into this study, and then you find out that they don't really know who Metropolitan is. They don't know what the purpose is of most agencies. They don't know who they pay their bills to. They don't understand, you know, the water quality issues, and they have very limited knowledge in that. So it's really interesting to see the public's perception, and that one of the major components that we talked about in this is the fact that when all of these really fancy bottled water companies came forward with Aquafina and with Fiji Water and with, you know, Perrier and all these, they had tremendous communication and outreach campaigns to promote and do their product. And we just don't have that kind of funding. So there's more to come on this and what we're going to do with the findings in this and how we're going to move forward. But again, you know, the real focus and something that a lot of people really talked about is, isn't it really the member agency's responsibility to communicate the trust, the water quality, the value of what we provide to our retail customers, to what we sell to the public, and that Metropolitan's responsibilities really are to the member agencies on selling water and doing the best that it can for the member agencies. So, so there's a lot of talk about a lot of that stuff going on. There was all kinds of things going on about the Finance and Asset Management Committee. The biggest item, obviously, Craig already touched on, and he is a part of, is the climate adaptation, the plan, the master plan for the water, and the draft report came out. The progress report came out. You know, we were part of a 10-member agency letter that was sent, and the comment that I provided back to the group was the fact that they put an appendix in there and cited the letter and cited the several different concerns and tried to bring out what that was and then try to address it, and that they're going to move forward as they go through the draft and try to finalize in the coming year. And so I just wanted to express, you know, my thanks to the general manager, to Craig, for, you know, his role in the leadership of this group and making sure that we're all coming together and we're putting these comments down on one letterhead with all of our emblems on there, with all of our support, and how that is collectively being received by the other agencies that are watching this, and the comments over great letter. So I want you to know I had a lot of colleagues on that board that said we wrote a great letter and participated in that, and so I just wanted to share that with everybody. San Diego Water Authority was invited to be the participant this month to sit at the dais with their general manager, and with what they're now going to start with is the president of the board is now going to be invited to come from that agency. And so Mel Katz came from San Diego Water Authority to sit, and they did an overhaul and a presentation. I thought they put out a really great overview information sheet that was shared with all of us at the dais. So I will share that going forward, because it's kind of a nice one sheet to be able to put out and give to people as a really 30-second glance, that you kind of get all this information right off the bat. So that was great. And then for the board meeting, along with all these other items that all get moved to the board for discussion, we had a couple of significant things that were, I want to highlight. One, Gloria Gray, the former chairwoman for Metropolitan, got her 15-year service pin that was awarded to her. So congratulations to her on 15 years of service to Metropolitan. Gail Goldberg got her 5-year pin, which it was nice that her president of her water authority board and the general manager were there to watch her get pinned with her 5-year pin. So that was really nice. And then the really sad note and the shocker for everybody, I have to tell you, I was told this the night before in confidence by the individual, asked, was so that I wouldn't be completely shocked and fall off of my seat when it was announced at the board meeting. But it is with tremendous sadness that I announce that Glenn Peterson, after 31 years on Met's board, has decided to retire. And so he will be officially leaving that board at the June 11th meeting, and that will be his last meeting in attendance. That is a huge institutional loss for us. He has been involved in so many different things. I have had the opportunity to sit just a couple of seats away from him. I have the opportunity when I stay overnight that he and I frequently attend dinner together, and I have had so many interesting conversations about the way Met did things in the past, where perspectives came from, all of the things that he has shared with me. He has probably forgotten more than I have learned at this point. And we are truly sad that he has decided to retire after such a long time. He is just part of that institution. So with that, I will go ahead and conclude my comments.
Thank you very much. Chino Basin Water Master meets next week. At that time, they are going to be presented with a budget that is scheduled to be adopted tomorrow by the advisory committee. The Water Master Board can either concur with the budget, or if they have a disagreement, they can send it back to the advisory committee and say, we'd like to see these changes. I suspect that there will not be any changes either by the advisory committee or by the board. All three of the pools recommend the same budget that has been prepared and presented by the staff. So more to come on that. Chino de Salter Authority, I covered for Director Roten, who was in Washington. They did a number of things. The key one was they adopted a fiscal year 24-25 budget, slight increase in O&M costs, and a significant decrease in capital costs because of the status of big projects. They approved a whole bunch of contracts, a lighting upgrade for Chino 2 de Salter, and then a series of annual contracts that provide for chemicals and on-call services and those sorts of things. So things are moving along well. Their capacity is, production capacity is 40,000 acre-feet a year. They're projecting more than 35,000 acre-feet will be produced this coming year. And that's it for CDA. RCRA.
It will meet next week.
WRCOG.
WRCOG, we did have a couple of things just to bring that forward. There were a couple of things on consent calendar. There was amendment to the agreement to finish out the PACE program and extend the legal services contract with BB&K for that PACE. So Scott Difford is handling a lot of that PACE litigation. Their budget was adopted for the foundation and the supporting foundation and all of those things that go along with, you know, General Assembly and how they managed to do all that. And then the recommendation did pass for the next chair, vice chair, and second vice chair, which is going to be Rita Rogers, myself, and Jackie Casillas from Corona. And then a lot of discussion is going on over TUMF, and then the Nexus study that they're doing right now. It does not involve us, and water districts do not vote on TUMF issues. So I could give you a whole version of TUMF if you want. I do understand it quite thoroughly, but I don't really think that's our area, so don't need to go into that. And then just as a reminder, we do have General Assembly that's coming up on June the 20th. We have received quite a bit of interest over that because of the speaker that's coming in. And so we do have a table, so I suggest that if you are interested in attending General Assembly, that you let Board Secretary know and put your reservation in for a seat so that you can be a part of General Assembly this year.
Everyone is registered.
Okay, great. So, and that's all I have for WRCOG.
Thank you.
Sarah was canceled this week.
Okay. Aqua Region 9.
So Region 9, obviously we had Aqua Conference, and Region 9, we did have a meeting that was fairly well attended. We did do a survey over the membership to see what people were interested in, if there was anybody that was willing to share with us some topics or some subject matters that we could do for fall programs. So we'll take in those results and be able to circulate that around. We do have a program that is going to be coming for Region 9 in August, and it's going to be held down at the Mount San Jacinto campus in Temecula. And they've been gracious enough to allow us some meeting space down there. And we've got some speakers. It's going to be talking about workforce development and some of the things that the region is doing. There's a lot of people that want to figure out how to engage in internship programs, how to get certain things started within their organizations to do mentoring and a variety of different things to support workforce development. And so we have engaged a couple of speakers, but one of the speakers that has been tapped is going to be Patrick Ellis, and he's coming from the Marietta Wildemar Chamber. He's also the chair for workforce development for Riverside County. And so Patrick is extremely knowledgeable in this area. And we look forward to him, along with other speakers, to be a part of that discussion and what the membership has asked for within the region. So look forward to that. And if you're interested, we'll get you some information and when to register on that when that opens up and get you invited to that. And then, of course, we're looking for a little nice reception area afterwards, since we'll be in Temecula area and it'll be really close to the wine country. And so we'll keep you posted as to that location and what may be happening for that. You know, it's in August, and I will have to go back and check the date. So it's in the first 2 weeks of August. It's like the 10th or something. I gotta verify the date on that. And that's all for Region 9.
Okay, and since you've got the floor, we'll go to you first for director's comments.
Well, I mean, obviously I attended Aqua in and of itself for the conference up in Sacramento. I had an opportunity. I was part of the group. Metropolitan side signed 2 very significant MOU agreements, and there were press releases and things that were done for that, for, you know, future water supply and partnerships, and working with the ag community and various different partners up there in the Central Valley. So that was really good. I did get an opportunity to attend the tail end of our general manager's segment, so I got to see the end game of that. So it looked like that segment was very well attended. There was hardly seating in the room, and I had to stand in the back for a while until I figured out where I wanted to sit. So kudos to our general manager for always drawing a big crowd on the subject matter he wants to talk about. I also attended one of the segments for Adon Ortega was invited to speak as well for one of the segments that was also well attended. And then I also walked into the portion where our assistant general counsel was a speaker at the ethics for the legal segment of that, on a refresh on the ethics and the requirements for filing and for different changes that may have been made. So I was able to see him speak along with a few other folks that were from BB&K. So, and that's, those are my comments.
Great, thank you. Director Risby.
All righty. I attended Aqua as well. Great conference. The one thing I really like is the networking part. Now, 4 years into being here, you get to know people. We were able to talk to a lot of people about California Water for All. That was a very important and big plus for me. The sessions are always amazing. You learn something new. I attended a session about what essential for cybersecurity. That was very important, and learn new things. And then the session with the general manager was amazing. All the general managers talking about the future and what is needed. And Greg, you always do a great job. So great event and great Aqua conference. That's about it. Thank you.
Okay. Director Roden.
Well, since I've missed a few meetings, I have a number of report outs. It seems like months ago, but April 4 and 5, I attended the Grow Riverside and Beyond Conference. Western was a sponsor, and I've been able to attend that conference this was their 10th year, I think. Yes, 10th year. And I've probably gone to at least 7 or 8 of them. I really enjoy it. I started back when I was on the city council, and we have our Healthy Jurupa Valley initiative, and it tied in with that for food access and healthy living and gardening and all those kinds of things. So I will keep it short. We did have a table there, and forgive me because I cannot remember the name of the first of our employees that manned the table for, I think, half of the first day, and then it went to Jeffrey, who was there for the balance. But they both did a nice job, and very congenial and, welcoming to people. And it was, I think it was good that we had a table there. The second day isn't quite as well attended as the first day, but it's when you have a 2-day conference, that happens sometimes. So the big draw for me this year was their first day keynote speaker, Javier Zamora. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about him. If you guys have other questions about it, I can show you my notes. But Javier spoke 5 or 6 years ago at Grow Riverside, and he is an organic farmer up in the Salinas area. And when he spoke back then, he said he's so passionate about farming and about food, but also about teaching the next generation how to do it successfully as a business. And so he said, if any of you are ever, up my way, I love to take tours, do tours of my farm and this and that. So I took him up on the offer a few years back, maybe 3. My husband and I were up in Carmel, and I emailed him and I said, we're going to be up in your area. Can we come by? And, oh, absolutely. So the day that we were headed home, we drove. We went to his farm first, and he spent 3 hours, I think, with my husband and I touring. Literally, we were walking down the aisles in the fields. He'd pick stuff up. We'd eat some of it. I carried some of it. We came home with this big box of beautiful, incredible produce. He does berries. He also does flowers. And at that time of year, they were making some wreaths. So I came home with like a eucalyptus wreath for my front door. And so when I saw his name on here, I'm like, oh no, I definitely have to go to this year, because he is so inspiring. Just even if you're not into farming, just to follow your passion and to help others to learn about it and become successful at it. So that was probably my biggest takeaway. Oh, and I got to go to the dinner that they have, which this was the first time I'd ever been able to go to the dinner. And that was nice. It was at Chris MacArthur's house, which is home, beautiful grounds, acreage. in the Greenbelt in Riverside, and it was outside. It was one of those days that it got really cold, and it started to rain just as it was ending, and everyone made a quick exit. But it's farm to fork, meal, and it was just nice to have an evening like that with folks that are supporting Grow Riverside and agriculture, especially local agriculture. So that was awesome. Okay, so then Craig shared quite a bit about our Washington trip. Thank you. So I am not going to necessarily repeat any of that, but I do want to say, let me just make sure if there was, yeah, I did want to say that the packet that was prepared for us to take was very impressive to me. Each meeting that we had like a printed PowerPoint that was geared to that particular appointment and what we were going to talk about. And then we were also given like a summary of key messages for each of the meetings. So it made it very easy to pick out a couple of things to maybe share in the conversation or that kind of thing. And then we left those behind for the people that we spoke with. So very valuable, at least it seemed to me, trip, and getting to know our lobbyists from Mark and Chris from the Ferguson Group even more, and on a little different basis than, coming through Zoom when they do their updates, which are great. But getting to know a little bit about them in person and was really nice. So we had good weather, and yeah, it was, I think all in all, it was a very good trip. So I thank you, Mike, because I know that would normally have been you to go, but I thank you for that opportunity. I enjoyed representing Western there.
Good. Thank you for doing it.
Oh, my pleasure, I will say. Okay, then let's see. Oh, JPIA. So I went up a couple days early to Aqua so that I could do the JPIA conference, and that was good. Andy Morris from Elsinore was re-voted into the position that he had before. I guess there were 2 openings, and actually he was the only one that applied, so now they do have a vacancy. And forgive me because I don't have it in front of me what the actual committee was that he's serving on, but his background career-wise is insurance, so most of you probably know him and what he does. So he's just really perfect for the roles that he's filling there. Plus, he's just an all-around nice guy. So that was JPIA also. Oh no, that was Aqua. I'm getting ahead of myself. Here we go. Tried to be organized, and there's just too much paperwork here. So the workshop that I attended on Monday was public entity pooling trends, and it was just interesting overall to hear about the different types of pools and the different benefits of pooling. The speaker was Ann Gergen, and talked about property, reinsurance, workers' comp, liability. I think there was one more. Oh, employee benefits. And so although, we aren't directly involved with deciding about pools and JPIA, it was interesting to hear sort of their operation of how they do it. And then on Tuesday, I attended the Water Management Committee upon Craig's recommendation. Appreciated that. And then I also attended the Federal Affairs Committee, and again, scribbled lots of notes. I take notes as a listening device for me. I don't always go back and look at them, and sometimes when I do, I'm like, what did that mean? But it just helps me to listen and to keep focused on on what folks are saying. So, yeah, I didn't go, I kind of went through this rather quickly last evening to see if there was anything that really stuck out, but I have a couple of pages folded back here, so let's see what this was. Oh, this was the pooled programs update. They did talk about cyber insurance, which, did I talk to you about that, Craig? I talked to somebody about what we're doing with JPIA in regard to cyber insurance. Was it you, Kevin?
Yeah, that it did
I
come up.
talked to somebody about
Yeah,
it.
we're Mike Mauser was talking about it at the budget workshop.
That was it.
So, yeah,
Okay,
we're
thank you.
engaged. So
Thank you. Yes.
I get those to Mike, and he shares them with his staff.
Okay. And it did seem like, because I think last JPIA, a year ago, was when they talked about cybersecurity initially, and they were starting with kind of what they have right now, and then we're going to possibly move into something more elaborate that may or may not have a cost to it. And it sounds like they weren't quite ready yet to move into that next step, but that maybe that would be happening at some point. And yeah, so I think that's it for JPIA. And then Aqua, very similar to all of you. I loved that they had a heavy paper schedule that I could use. The app is nice because it gives you all the details and the bios and all of that kind of stuff, but it's kind of cumbersome. It's like, what did I sign up for next? What am I doing? So being up there a few days early, I was able to take some time, I think that first evening, and go through the app and really look at it. Whereas when I've gotten there sometimes on Tuesday night, I haven't necessarily had time to pre-plan what I want to go see. So very full. I did participate in the wellness walk, not run, that Woodard and Karan put on. They always do, they either do yoga or a walk or whatever, and that was nice. And so I chit-chatted with a few people on that. Was no pressure as far as speed, thankfully. So I was happy to do that. And I think, Fozzie, you mentioned the networking meals. I like how they have done that, how they've changed those meals now to be networking, and there was plenty of room, lots of tables. You could have eaten by yourself if you wanted to, but I was like, Laura, go meet someone. So got to sit, meet with a few different people from a few different areas. And so I'm really glad about that particular part of the program. I think that was, this was JPIA. Oh, I did go to Region 9. Oh, and I should mention this one. I went to the Making Conservation a California Way of Life workshop, hoping to hear a more uplifting message than I had heard at the previous one of those. And it really was not. And I had to remind myself that I was representing our board, and I was not free to just stand up, raise my hand, and maybe make a very forceful comment. So instead, I texted Craig. I'm like, I need to talk to you about this. So we will chat about it. I did find my notes, and just didn't come away as encouraged or relieved as I had hoped to from that. But it's reality. We have to work with it, so I'm sure we'll figure it out. Okay, so that was all of those. And then I wanted to thank, I don't think I forgot anything. I wanted to thank Michelle and Paula. This morning they were bright and early at the Norco Chamber breakfast where we were a sponsor today. And we did a little tag team. It was supposed to be 5 minutes. I think we kept it fairly close, but they had arranged a PowerPoint, and I had, thank you, Tim, the postcards for California Water for All, and put those out for everybody. And just got a really warm welcome at the chamber. I wish the crowd had been bigger. It was kind of small in comparison to what I had seen in the past. But they were very engaged, listening, asked some good questions, and or not questions, but made some good comments. And it just really went well, and I told them both how much I appreciated the time that had been put into that. So that was great. And just one last comment, and I'm just going to make an apology to the public speaker that came up thinking that the SAPA presentation was today. That likely came from information that I shared with a constituent who I also saw at Norco this morning, and she said, "Oh, your big meeting is today." And I said, "No, it's not today." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, who did I tell?" Well, I am assuming the public speaker is one of the folks she spoke with, so I felt terrible for her. I'm really glad, though, that she came and shared her concerns and seemed like she had worked already to inform herself about the project and all of that. So I am very sorry, and I will circle back with the constituent that I was speaking with about it to let her know. So I think that covers everything. And I also want to thank the board for your understanding in my being gone from not only 2 board meetings, but I think I missed at least 2 committee meetings, I'm pretty sure. So I appreciate that I was, I don't want to say allowed, but that you you were supportive of me being able to do those trips. So thank you.
Director Torres.
Yeah, I have a couple, and I want to thank Director Roughton. She's always so incredibly detailed, but also so succinct at the same time. Like, you got so much information in that time that most people, don't. So I also attended Aqua. Thanks to Tammy's magic fingers, I was able to go for an evening and then part of the Wednesday. I also had a chance to watch the general managers forum, which was really eye-opening in the amount of work that you've been able to do to break through like very, very solid walls between water agencies, watersheds, and so that's huge. And then I had a chance to network, had a good lunch. Director Rizvi and I had a good lunch with Adan Ortega. Talked about almost everything, but that's my favorite part of conferences, especially water conferences, where I tend to, it's more 101 for me, and so it's nice to do the networking portions. I haven't done it yet, but I've been invited to the Colorado River, the Metropolitan Colorado River with WELL, so I'll be doing that with Adan Ortega invited me. I was asked to speak at IDEAL. It's a UCI project where they are doing research on DEI in water, and so I'll be a panelist for that next week. It's next week, the 23rd. I keep feeling it needs to be the 30th today, and then I'm like, it's only the 15th. So next week, and then I did receive a couple of calls just to put on your radar. I guess there was construction in Mission Grove, like Cannon and Northridge. I think a pipe was moved and there was repaving. So a few people called me, and apparently the repaving on Cannon was perfect. The repaving on Northridge was not. So.
They called to say something that was good? It was
Yeah.
They sandwiched it.
They sandwiched the Northridge, and I haven't. To be honest, I haven't had a chance to go look, even though I told them I would try. But if
just we get this quite a bit. But Paul's gone, but the ops team, they try and package the repaving, the final repaving, into a few different projects at the same time. So a lot of times we have a temporary paving on there while we're waiting for some other projects to finalize, so we can save money and get the contractor out there.
And that's
all at one
good to
time.
know. So next time I get a call, I
So-
said maybe
I know,
just
and-
wait a little bit.
Yeah, and so I'm giving you that because I do hear that from other directors, and we get that comment.
Okay.
And yeah, we're never going to leave it like bumpy third world
Yeah.
pavement. We're just not quite done with the project yet.
But apparently Cannon's was perfect. Very, very well done. And then that's that. I was hoping, I was hoping today we'd hear about the May Revise, or maybe soon we'll hear about the May Revise and what, what we see as far as water. If not, that's fine. I just wanted to bring it up. As far as today's public comment also, she's, aside from actually being here, I've gotten probably 100 questions about cloud seeding and whatnot. And so I don't know what's in store. I don't know if there is a big meeting coming up. But I thought this might be a good time to revive Water 411 and do an actual community information meeting. I know it's unpopular right now, but I think she's correct in that the more we engage with community, the less those fears. And it's all fear that I hear. So that was my, too bad she wasn't here for us to address it, but that was my idea, and if that could happen, that would be cool. And then, where's Edgemont? Is it in my service area?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so, because I'm
Well, it's-
pretty good with my service area.
We're having trouble figuring out. We'll powwow about, what the speaker was talking about. Generally, it was all outside of our service area, but then he was talking about Edgemont, which can be tied to Box Springs. But, this part is, whose comments are these? But we actually fought really hard for Box Springs to get a new well through SAPA's programs, and they got a well fully funded.
But
So we've done a lot of work to help Box Springs out. I don't know if that's what he was talking about or not. Let us kind of think about that, and we'll talk again with you.
Yeah, but then the Box Springs area isn't like a disadvantaged community either, is it?
It is.
Is it?
It is. Parts of it are,
Right here?
and it's
Okay.
and it's a mutual, so they do their own
Probably the
thing.
eastern side, though, right?
I don't know
Okay,
what he was.
I was incredibly, I'm pretty good with my own district, so I was like, Edgemont, I have no clue where that is. So that would be helpful for me. So I can address that next time it comes our way or my way. But that's it. Everyone have a happy Memorial Day weekend.
It is coming. Okay, I have just a few things. While all of you were in Sacramento, I went to Greater Riverside Chambers of Commerce Good Morning Riverside meeting, which we sponsored. Put on a presentation that staff put together. It was excellent. I think it was well received. Probably the highlight of the meeting for me was the keynote speaker was Sheriff Bianco, who is pretty conservative and pretty outspoken. And his presentation began with, "I have a birth defect. I was born without a filter and I have no control over what comes out of my mouth." And he proved that that was true in his presentation. The second thing is this afternoon and evening, El Sonora Valley Municipal Water District is hosting a tour for Adon Ortega of their facilities. And I understand they are anticipating going out on Canyon Lake in a boat if it's still raining, maybe not. Yeah, people have been going by with umbrellas and windshield wipers. And so we'll see what happens with that. There is a dinner that Craig and I are attending following that. Oh yes, the Met Director. So, it only indirectly affects Western, but I think it is important. Last night, the Riverside City Council finally gave specific direction to proceed in partnership with Southern California Edison on building a new high-voltage transmission connection to the statewide grid, which will improve the reliability of Riverside Public Utilities service to western facilities in the RPU service area. They are anticipating that it will be online by 2029 and perhaps a year earlier. But it's a really important project. Let's see. On Mother's Day, our very own Michael Hadley became a father. So, yeah. So they have now produced Jacob Franklin Hadley, born Mother's Day morning, and he's a big baby, 8-something. Everybody's doing well. And there are pictures on Michael's Facebook page.
And he brought his lovely wife to the state of the city for Marietta, and I looked at both of them going, why are you guys here and why aren't you at the hospital yet?
They went.
So they went a couple of days later,
Yeah.
so, well, congratulations to them.
Yeah, congratulations to the Hadleys, all 3 of them. And that's all I have. Do we have requests for future agenda items? Seeing none. Do we have a closed session?
We have a short closed session.
Okay. Mr.
We do have a
General
brief
Counsel?
closed session regarding anticipated litigation, and we do report, or we do anticipate reportable action.
Okay, so we will be back following closed session. Let's start closed session at 12:30, gives people 5 or 6 minutes to take care of things that need to be taken care of.
Recording stopped. And she's so cute, but I'm like, I just.
You're like, I know what to make. Can't girls now.
Least.
You like Zoom.
Are back in open session, and I'll ask General Counsel to report out on the closed session.
Yes, the board previously met on March 6, 2024, and voted to intervene in an action Blue Triton versus State Regional Water Quality Control Board. Since that time, the district has been successful in achieving its ends in that matter, and so the board voted 5-0 today to not intervene, and that motion was made by Director Torres and seconded by Director Rizvi.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we do have some information items in the packet, and our next meeting will be Wednesday, June the 5th, and with that, we will be adjourned. Thank you all.